Soldier appeared to have no connections to extremist groups. The soldier, identified by others as Ivan Lopez, enlisted in the Army in June of 2008 as an infantryman and later was switched over to the specialty job as a truck driver, the job that he had in Iraq. Authorities say that the soldier was examined by a psychiatrist last month and was found to show no violent or suicidal tendencies.
Well, joining us now to talk more about this story, former FBI agent, FBI counterterrorism expert, and Army Ranger and West Point grad, Chad Jenkins. Chad, we're glad to have you here. We're sorry it's under these circumstances. Let's get right to it. You take a look at what happened yesterday. Yes, still some facts we have to uncover. What went on in your mind? What went wrong that resulted in this tragedy?
Well, it's so hard to put one thing on it, JD. I mean, we're talking about an issue that now we've seen repeated from 2009 in the Nidal Hassan issue. Once again, the tragedy taking place at Fort Hood yesterday. And unfortunately, if it was a tangible one-item fix, we'd be okay. But not only from a military standpoint, but really from an American society, we continuously see these active shooter scenarios. And it's just such a volatile issue, and it just hurts so many individuals. It's very, very difficult to pin it on one thing.
And while you can't pin it on one thing, Chad, the fact is it happens for the second time at Fort Hood. And so many people have been writing us saying, well, wait a minute, why are service members who we trust in the field with firearms, who train on the firearms, why aren't they allowed to have access to carry a sidearm on base?
And I think that is a legitimate argument and one that needs to be readdressed. Obviously, in 1993, Bill Clinton went ahead and put the executive order so that took away that right for soldiers, sailors, airmen to carry on post. And I think we really, in this society, in the uptick in active shooter scenarios, I mean, let's take the military, for instance, and make it the American society. After active shooter scenarios happen in a university, we're not telling people that they can't carry firearms. Why are we telling people that are trained in using firearms that they can't carry firearms on their own post to protect themselves? So I think that's the greater issue. It definitely needs to be readdressed. And I think soldiers, we treat them as adults overseas, and we ask them to do unbelievable things, and they do that overseas. Let's give them the respect and the rights to protect themselves here on their own homeland.
Now, the other specter entering into this, questions of mental health. And Chad, you served at Fallujah, and the nightmare scenario there, war is hell in any way, shape, fashion, or form. But talking to some of my old constituents and people who are in Fallujah, it was its own special brand of hell.
It was. I mean, I was there from 2003 to 2004. We saw when the Blackwater security personnel got hung from the Brooklyn Bridge, one of the northern bridges in Fallujah. So very, very difficult and very, I mean, that's the only way to really describe it is hell. But getting back to the mental health situation, especially when it comes to military, and I think, unfortunately, we go way too quickly mainstream to say, oh, it must be PTSD. It's either terrorism related or PTSD. Hey, there are a lot of veterans and active duty service members who have gone through hell. Let's go ahead and not make it a stigma if they go ahead and reach out and try to better themselves, better their families, and reach out and seek counsel from a medical professional. And I think, unfortunately, we're missing that ball on that, and we're putting a stigma on it when that needs to be something that's encouraged for those young men and women who do get that help.
Had a chance to work with TRADOC, Training and Doctrine, from the U.S. Army during my days in Congress, and we started, actually, it may seem weird, the chaos that is politics, try to employ certain staples of the military business, such as after-action reviews. Now we do that militarily,
right?
But in terms of individual returning service members, as part of the processing out if they choose to leave the service, or even at the end of a deployment, should there be after the fact counseling that is mandatory for every returning vet, so it's not a matter of them volunteering if they feel there might be a mental condition or someone they need to talk to, just make it part of the process no matter what?
Well, that actually is already employed,
Okay.
JD. There's you do a pre-deployment readiness assessment, and then you do a post-deployment readiness assessment. And it's a 100 question fill in the bubbles, and if one of those questions deems to hit a trigger, then you go and talk to a healthcare professional. I think that's more of a Band-Aid on a gushing chest wound. I mean, there's so many issues on here. I don't know that that's already been enacted, and obviously we're seeing these active violence scenarios still take place.
Obviously, since we've been at war for over 10 years now, there's a lot of pressure on recruiters here. Is enough being done, Chad, at the initial enlistment process to make sure that these people are sound for duty?
John, that's a good question. I think it is. I mean, you can't predict the unpredictable. I mean, look at this individual that just conducted this attack. I mean, grew up in a good family back in Puerto Rico. I mean, his still remains in close contact with his teachers there in Puerto Rico. I know his mother passed away and his grandfather passed away not too long ago. But I don't think that's a predictable indication that he would reach out and conduct a violent attack on anyone. So it's very difficult to predict these active violent situations.
Less than a minute. I want to get personal.
Okay.
When you returned home from Fallujah, was there anything that surprised you when you came back stateside, personally?
You know what? The personal touch on it, I think the biggest thing is not taking things for granted. You get back home and there's a readjustment. My wife would be the better one to ask because she would see multiple things. I couldn't turn off as quickly when you get home. I remember my first Ranger deployment, it was my second deployment. The next morning, the very first night I got back, I was out gardening, pulling the weeds at like 5:30 a.m.
Had to do something.
Had to get going,
Wow,
had to
that
get ready to do.
frenetic pace.
Right.
Part of the readjustment. And Chad, we appreciate your insights, and we will be calling on you again as this story develops.
Thanks, JD.
Great to see you, Chad.
You too.
More to come here on America's Forum. Of course, we want to continue to get your insights and your take on what's happening out in Fort Hood, Texas. You can reach out to us on social media. Here is our contact information. Get it a screen, write it down, and reach out to us on social media. We'll be back with more here on America's Forum right after this.